the portion of Kiseitse la milchama al yevecho. And when you go to war against your enemies, U'nesana Hashem Elokecha biyadecha, u'shavisa shivyo, and Hashem will give your enemies into your hand, meaning you'll be victorious, and you will take its captive. Say they captives. What's for shavisa shivyo? And you will take captive its captives. So Rashi, firstly, last week we spoke about conquering the nations of Canaan. There are no survivors. There's a negative commandment, lo schai kol neshama. The nations of Canaan have to be totally annihilated. And here we're speaking about taking captives. So evidently, we're not speaking of Melchemes Rishus, Melchemes Mitzvah. We're not speaking of the Melchama where you're obligated to conquer the land of Canaan. There's a non-obligatory war, meaning if, let's say, it's a defensive war, it's for land acquisition, for all these other reasons why you're going to war, and you go to war, so then you're permitted to take captives. We spoke about last week about if you come upon a city and they're not willing to agree to be subject to your dominance, you kill the males, the females, and the children. You're allowed to live. So we're speaking about it's that kind of war. It's not a Melchemes Mitzvah. It's not an obligatory war. So Rashi says, Melchemes Mitzvah, Melchemes Rishus Kosem Medaber. We're speaking about non-obligatory war. Melchemes Eretz Yisrael, and Loma b'Shavisa Shivyo. If it's speaking about the conquest of Eretz Yisrael, there's no such thing as taking captives. Shrei Kvar Nemar, Lo Sechai Kol Neshama. Last week's reading. You should not allow any survivors. V'Shavisa Shivyo. What does it mean? And you take its captive. The Rabbos Kananim Shebesocho. Shalpi Shehem Yeshiva Umos. Meaning what the Torah is telling us, let's say when you take the captives, among the captives are captives which they had taken from the 7 nations of Canaan. Then you're permitted to take them, but you don't have to kill them. If you directly go to war against the nations of Canaan, they have to be, the captives have to be, the people have to be annihilated. There are no prisoners of war. They all have to be killed. But if you're going to war where you're permitted to take captives, and among the captives are people of the pedigree of the nations of Canaan, you're permitted to take them as captives. So over here, the Orach Chaim HaKodesh speaks about, interprets the pasuk based on an illusionary level. He says, "La milchama." When you go to the war of wars, la doesn't say li milchama. It would be a shva under the lamed. It means when you go to war. La milchama means the war, like the war of wars. What are we speaking about? That the greatest battle a person has to fight every moment of his existence is against his evil inclination. That is the war we must contend with every moment of our lives until we're no longer alive. When you go to that war, don't delude yourself and think that this inclination suggests anything which is truly in your benefit. It's all to deceive you and mislead you. And therefore it says, Alo Yevecho. You have to know in advance that this is your true enemy. This war, which is the war of wars, which is the greatest battle of our life that we have to contend with continuously, it's Al Oyevecho. It's your enemy. This inclination, don't for a second think he's there to, in any way, to enhance your life. He may present it as the most attractive setting, but ultimately, it will destroy you. The Chofetz Chaim gives an example, beautiful allegory, that this person approaches someone And he begins speaking to him. He says, I have an opportunity for you. Somewhere in this town, there's a buried treasure, and no one knows about it. And somehow he convinces this person, for whatever reason, that he's going to share the secret with him. And he says, in the town refuse dump, at a certain location, buried deep in that trash heap, is this treasure. And I'm waiting for a night where there's no moon. So it's dark. We're going to go to the top of this trash heap, and I'm going to show you where it is. And you're going to what? You're going to go there, and you're going to take it out of this mound of trash, and you'll be able to go off and be the wealthiest person and the luckiest man in the world. And he convinces him and seduces him. Finally, it's overcast at night, takes him out to the top of this trash heap. And he says, go to the top of the mountain and stand right there, and then put your hand into the trash heap. You'll be able to pull out this treasure. As he goes to the top of the heap, all of a sudden he feels his feet sinking in, and gradually he's going lower and lower until it's up to his mouth. And he realizes that he was deceived, and ultimately he will die. It will go above his head, and he's going to be buried alive in the trash. He says, that's exactly what the HR is, the evil inclination. He convinces you the things which are invaluable, opportunities which one of a kind, which are permitted, and you're convinced. And he takes you there, he takes you through the door, and beyond that location, there is no solid ground, and you go off the cliff. That's exactly what the HR does. And it will work on you a lifetime. Very often you find in life, a person has an opportunity. But we only see to a certain point. We speak about Ezel Chocham Arosa Nolad. Who is the wise one? The one who sees the eventuality of where this will bring him to. That's Ezel Chocham Arosa Nolad. It may be 20 steps ahead, but the wise man sees how things evolve. And you have an opportunity to enter at a certain echelon and position in the business world. But if you have a certain capability and you advance, in 25 years, you can be in position where right now the challenges don't exist. But it's as the opportunities and the increase and the position becomes more attractive and you become more empowered, at a certain point, your challenges are not challenges of today. Do you compromise your Shabbos? Do you compromise your kashrus? Do you compromise your interaction with the opposite sex? And eventually, you may destroy your life. Person may end up having an illicit affair because he's exposed to a certain environment, which as an underling, yet never had relevance to it. But over time, as he draws you up that financial ladder and that empowerment, you never know where you're going. So sometimes understanding who you're contending with, understanding the potential where this could bring you, you just stay away from it. We say in the second parsha of the Kriya Shema, and if you heed the mitzvos, with all your heart and even to give your lives, then all of a sudden, and then it says the bounty will come, the rains will come at that time, you bring in your bounty, and so on and so forth. Then it says, you have to be extra careful because you'll be seduced by your heart, and you serve alien gods. We're talking about a person is committed at a level to give his life and to be fully invested to do the will of God. But the moment the success starts seeping in, the rains come, you bring your harvest, the Torah warns us, you may be seduced by your hearts. There's a lot of temptation, but it's permitted. It's an opportunity, but you never know where that may bring you. It can even bring you to do idolatry, even to that degree. Because if you understand where it's taking you, it can even take you there. And that's the reality. It doesn't say limil choma, it says la milchama. This is the war of wars. And who is that against? Oyevecha, your enemy. When you're born into this existence, you're born into a life of challenges. Some people have lesser challenges, more challenges, but every moment, that's what you have to contend with. Whether you're aware of it or not aware of it, but that's the reality of life. And the Torah tells us, Shavisa Shivya. You should know you will succeed. If you understand what you have to contend with, you'll merit the divine assistance to be able to take control of your life. And the challenge should not overwhelm you. We're talking about a challenge which is not self-induced. Life itself is a minefield. That's what it is. You have to have a mind detector to be able to avoid and navigate life, to avoid those mines. And there are mechanisms. What are they? It's the Torah, it's the mitzvahs, whatever they are. The spiritualization of a person, which allows a person to have the acuity and the sensitivity to be able to sense where he should go, where he should not go. But that's exactly what the Torah is forewarning us in life. We had studied in the Pirkei Avos at one time, the commentary of the Maharal of Prague, and he quotes a Gemara in Sanhedrin. Rabbi Yochanan says, we find that right after the great flood, Hashem makes a covenant with existence that he will not bring a great flood again ever to destroy the world. Why? Because the inclination of man is evil, min urov. Literally, min urov means from his youth. But Rashi cites the Gemara in Sanhedrin, min urov, mishin ninar mimei imov, he becomes Ra. The moment the child is cast from his mother's womb, he already is influenced by the evil inclination. Meaning, in utero, the evil inclination cannot influence that child. But once that child leaves the womb of its mother, it's what? It's already subject to the influence of the evil inclination. That's Rabbi Yochanan. So the Maharal of Prague explains that when the child is in development, pre-birth, God does not allow the evil inclination to have any level of influence on that child. As the Gemara tells us, before a child was born, a malach, an angel teaches that child the Torah's entirety. It has a level of clarity that the child sees from one end of the world to the other. Although the child is a physical entity, there's a fetus, but the unborn fetus has the status of a spiritual being. And therefore, the angel teaches him, and the child has clarity, sees from one end of the world to the other. The moment it's born, it forgets all the Torah that it was taught, and it no longer has that clarity. It's an infant, newborn infant. Now it has to develop intelligently, but physically it's fully developed. The moment the physical process has evolved, has come to a completion, now the evil inclination attaches up to that child. That's Mishaninar Me Imo. When it's cast from the womb of its mother, the evil inclination attaches itself. So Maharal of Prague says something phenomenal. When does God permit the evil inclination to have influence on a person? Only if you're complete. But let's say a person lives his life that he's always evolving. Then the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, has no right to associate itself with that person. So he explains, let's say a person invests his life that every moment you're working towards spiritual perfection. Meaning you feel you're never complete, studying Torah. And everything you do is to complete your mission. So you're always in the phase of evolvement. If you're evolving, the Yetzer Hara cannot touch you, cannot influence you. Hashem does not allow, it's like in utero. When you're in the evolvement stage, Hashem does not allow the evil inclination to in any way influence you. But the moment the person feels, I've arrived, I've studied enough today, I think I have my measure today, the moment you take that break, and the break is, because I've come to a completed point, now you're subject to the evil inclination. So with this, I explained the Rambam. The Rambam writes that by all of the mitzvahs, we say, Osik mitzvah potem min mitzvah. That if you engage in one mitzvah, you're not permitted to interrupt to do another mitzvah. What about in terms of the study of Torah? You're studying Torah and you have to interrupt to do another mitzvah or something that you must do. Are you permitted to interrupt your Torah study? So the law is you're permitted. That if whatever reason you have to interrupt your Torah study, it cannot be delegated from third party, you're permitted to interrupt your Torah study. Even though we say Talmud Torah can't. Kulam, comes time, put on your tefillin, time says Kriya Shema. It's time to go to sleep, to eat, to engage in a business transaction, which you must do. You interrupt your Torah study because it's something which you cannot delegate through a third party. But the Rambam says that when you interrupt your Torah study, the interruption should be in mind that you're coming back to your studies. So therefore, there's never an abrupt halt. When I leave, I'm taking a break to come back. So as a result of that, even when you leave, it's to come back. So you're still in the evolving state that you're never detached and disconnected from the Torah. And if a person is always in that state that you're evolving, and of course you're evolving in the spiritual realm, then the evil inclination cannot in any way influence you or affect your life. So a person understands what the nature of this battle is. But factually, you have the ability to take charge of your life. You will conquer it. You have an ability to defeat it and conquer it totally. Although he convinces you, says it's futile, it's impossible. Most people fail. What are you wasting your time? Factually speaking, if you address it properly, you'll be the victor and you have nothing to worry about.